Hello, everybody, and it's been a long while since I did an installment of SmurfyDan interview since the summer of 2018, when I interviewed Matt Michaud, A.K.A. Enterprising Engine 93. So now here we are with Mel Shiri, A.K.A. Roll Along Thomas, the Entertainment Hub.
Hello, Daniel. How are you doing?
Doing well, Mel, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm not doing too bad, just pretty much carrying on with life as it is, doing the occasional video every now and then when I've got spare time. Um, as of the recording of this, I've just come back from a Trainmaster event, which was much nearer to my house, and I'm just resting. And then from Thursday, I'll be going back to do more Peppa Pig tours in London. So I do get my rest, but it's a lot of hard work, but I'm loving it.
So much for a quick introduction for our viewers. Well, that's nice. So, shall we get through with some plenty of questions I have for you here for the viewers to get to know more of you than what you had been on Twitter and YouTube and such.
Fire away. I'm ready when you are.
Okie dokie. The first one should be the easiest one. What are your earliest memories with Thomas and friends?
My first memory, I'm told, was when I had a wooden James toy in my hand when I was 2 years old, and in my buggy, and my father and mother would sort of take me to our town area, and that was apparently my first memory in terms of the show itself. That would have been the Your Favorite Story Collection VHS. Do you remember all that stuff back in the day? And I remember watching Special Funnel, which is actually my all-time favorite episode. And Close Shave and Edward Gordon Henry was in there. So those were my very first memories.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Well, my earliest memories would have to be Trust Thomas and Other Stories with early draft narrations from Michael
Oh
Lindell.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much my earliest memories. That's one of them.
Well, you're gonna have to forgive me because I no longer have that VHS.
Yeah, who knows? Those were a pretty good good answer to your earliest memories. So, which reminds me, moving to the next one. What are your favorite Thomas stories, characters, and songs? I know you already answered one of those. That's Special Funnel.
So what was it? So episodes, characters, and songs.
Favorite Thomas stories, characters, and songs.
Story, characters, songs. Well, Special Funnel, all-time favorite. Edward Gordon and Henry is up there. Um, Close Shave is definitely one of them. I've become very fascinated with James the Super Engine recently. It's just a lot of fun. It entertains me every time, and I can't stop watching it. Da 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 da.
Oh,
Um,
Rocket.
yeah, and Henry's Hero, I find that very underrated. It plays like a feature-length special, but in 8 hours 40. 8 minutes 45 seconds, as technically we are. Engine of Many Colors, yep, fastest round engine on Sodor. I love those ones. And if I can think of any more, I mean, Series 4 is my favorite season because that's what I grew up with. And certainly, the Grand Buff stories I like very much because they pretty much introduce you to the Sodor world if you just started with that series, if you see what I mean. And Thomas and the Special Letter, that's up there. And I really am a fan of the World's Strongest Engine. I mean, that is just, it crams so much in 4.5 minutes, and it's just Diesel at his one of his best. The fact he's seen his mishap a lot. So yeah, stories like that, and I'll throw a wild card in there. Percy James and the Fruitful Day. That one is very underrated.
Ooh. And what about your favorite songs too?
Mm.
Anyone? Classic, CGI, etc.
I mean, Party Train recently. That's up there. Night Train is probably one of the near top favorites. Working together, can't get enough of that. You can just have a Thomas rave with that and just pop along with it. And what else is there from the top of my head? Um, I'm a bit of a fan of Toby, his song, trying to do things better. Navigation, that's kind of there. What else is there? Thomas, you're the leader. Basically the rap track, the rappiest we've that we ever got. And there's plenty more that I'm failing to remember. Oh, never give up. That's probably my absolute favorite, because it's just it's something that you can listen to when you're feeling down, but it motivates you to do better, that you don't have to just stop right there. You just got to carry on and just not give up. And yeah, there's plenty more, but those are definitely the mentions.
Well, you do have plenty of a variety of pretty good choices for your favorite story characters and songs with solid reasonings. I'll bet that was real nice to hear. That is very
well.
I know. Now, this next question should be far more interesting, and this time it's about you in general here. So, question is, how did you join the Thomas Internet fan base?
Well, as a few people might be aware, I was one of the original SIFers, and I still am. So that was around 2003 when the 7th series was just about to come out, and I've got a very specific memory when I looked in the TV guide at the time, and you had that picture of Arthur with that competition, name this engine, otherwise it was going to be called Clarence. So it was around that time that I joined, and obviously that was before the season 8 relaunch happened. So I definitely remember at the time when Calling All Engines was about to go into effect, and I remember there was lots of buzz about that. And around that time, the name that I used was Shiny Henry, then it was Kind Edward, and then it was the Top Hats, which I retired a few years ago. And nowadays I just prefer to refer via my professional stage name, Mel Shiri, just because it's easy to remember, and because I don't have to get people to spell it, but also people can just call me the Roll Long Thomas Man, which I'm happy for. But Roll Long Thomas, that's been running for a little more than 10 years. This is the most productive year I've ever done the videos. I think I've got to thank lockdown for that, actually, despite the grim reality we've all had to face regarding that. So I've been with SIF for, goodness me, more than 15 years. Roll Long Thomas, more than 10 years. Twitter, I've been on since 2011, so I'm at Mel Shiri, and yeah, that's how I started in the fandom, and I still make the videos, and I still try and make content, but also I try and make sure that I want to connect with more people these days associated with the fandom. Like I did some Skypes recently, and I did get a bit of flack when people thought I did that rather deliberately, but the truth was that there was lots of Skypes fitting in my window for about 3 or 4 days, because my schedule was pretty busy, and everybody got their schedules in there, and it was just a thing of, okay, let's do these Skypes in that window, and then just get to know everybody more. So I've been enjoying that, and I've met certain fans at events, and everybody's been pretty lovely to me. Some of them being lifelong fans, some of them I've known from the airwaves, as it were. And yeah, I get to kind of do what I love as a job now, entertaining children and families, but also in terms of Thomas, well, the Trainmaster thing, and I get to embrace being a fan.
That's a very fascinating story to hear on your early days and how you came to be right now.
I mean, a bit of a human growth, despite my age. I still love the damn thing.
Who else wouldn't? Right. Now, for the next question, Mel, is, do you recall any voiceover work you did in the past before joining YouTube while you were in some Thomas forums other than the SIF that's mostly active?
I think I only did one for SIF, and this was the history of the other railway. The second episode, Jockstrap, I voiced a John Wayne kind of character that was in some sort of television bit of the audio. So that was the thing of, your people robbed us of sacred land, sheriff. This is war. That kind of stuff. I don't really remember, to be honest with you, Daniel. I don't remember much of the early fan projects that I did. But in terms of YouTube, I can remember bits of that. I think I definitely did ones for Canon Walker Tenjin. And he's actually put those back up recently, even ones that I absolutely did not remember I voiced. I remember doing Wildfire, definitely. And I was happy with how I was depicted in that. But the other ones, I'm kind of embarrassed of those performances, to be honest with you. But yeah, there's an awful lot that I've done. And in terms of recent ones, TCC, I was involved in that, doing Gator, Oliver, Laurie's 1, Laurie 2, a few Diesel minions, a Signalman, Duke, Butch, the Duke of Boxford, and there's one more that I'm failing to remember. But that's there, and I've been doing an awful lot of fandom project voiceovers this year. Like, as I said, this is to be the most productive year I've been doing the fandom. But the early ones, I mean, I think I did another SIF one, but I think this was more of I think it was kind of a sort of behind the scenes ish kind of thing. I remember I voiced a hit executive, but I couldn't even find a trace of the file recently, and I don't know where that's gone, even on the internet. But yeah, so my memory's a bit jaded of the early ones.
Although my earliest memories aren't jaded, mostly the most voiceover projects that you had done in some not so great qualified redubs done by Dan. He's an alright guy, really. He's an alright guy.
Oh, I'm trying to remember any redubs, but no, unless you can enlighten me, Daniel, I'm struggling to remember.
That's alright. It's just that you sounded like you were 12. Well, you were literally 12 years old at the time in Daniel Snell's redubs.
Oh my goodness, Daniel Snell. I hope he's doing well these days. World of Thomas, yes.
Yep, World of Thomas.
Oh goodness, yeah, it's coming back to my head now as I speak. I can't remember exactly who I voiced, but I definitely did a few for him. Yeah.
Definitely a few. That's totally lost some count. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I think we're good with that question, so should we move on to the next one?
Whichever way, yeah.
Yes. Talking of the usernames, why did you go by different Thomas usernames throughout the years before settling on Rowan Thomas and Mel Shiri?
To be honest with you, I couldn't make up my mind. Those early usernames at the time was because at the time I wasn't comfortable disclosing my actual name, and then I warmed to it when I began to embrace Thomas a lot more as I aged. But yeah, I just didn't like the sound of Shiny Henry eventually. Then I didn't like Kind Edward. Then I didn't want a top ass after a while because I wanted to become more of me. And once I had my equity card and I got into the professional acting gigs, whether it was Goodwood or BBC or Channel 5 or, more stuff like that, that's when I just felt it's easy if it's just people remember me by my stage name, because my stage name is actually a shortened version of my real name. And then I retitled the YouTube role along Thomas once Google allowed that stuff. So yeah, it was just down to a lack of confidence, which eventually turned into confidence.
That's a pretty good moral that you just had told there, Mel.
Mm.
Now that reminds me of me. I'm going by a long-standing former username. You know how it is. That rings a bell.
I mean, you've kind of been there almost the same length as me. How long have you been in the fandom for? 10 years?
You mean well, S10 5589. Let's just say more than 10 years from
5589. Yeah. I remember that.
2005 to the end of 2015, and that's when they decided. I think I'll change it to a different username that I'm going by SmurfyDan for YouTube. And about 2 years later, on when I finally joined the Sodor Island Forums, that's when I decided to stick to another new username, Mr. Coffee Pot, as suggested by Nicholas. Anyway, moving on to the next question. How did your current YouTube username, Roland Thomas, came to be for a Thomas Entertainment Hub channel?
Well, my channel at the time was Under the Top Hats, and once I did the Roll Along blog, I just felt it was better to sort of capsulize, if I could say that, just to make it all connected together, because the news blog was effectively for the fans and families. The YouTube channel is for the fans and families, and that's the connection that I was trying to make. But the YouTube channel is actually been aimed at families pretty much since the inception, and it's sort of been doing that a lot more to cater to that demographic more. And that, as I said, that was a conscious effort to differentiate from other YouTube channels, because I just felt that it wasn't quite that good whenever I would see Tom's YouTube channels including swearing and violence, and I just felt, kids may be watching this if they're 5 years old, that might be potentially dangerous. And then the YouTube Kids channels start to turn up in the app, and then obviously Google and YouTube, they started to change the demographics by putting it's got to be a family channel, or it's actually this kind of adult channel, and if it's a family channel then you've got to disable the comments. So that I actually decided on myself even way before that, as I mentioned. But the connection between Roll Along YouTube and the Roll Along Thomas blog was the fact it was all togetherness. Just a little Thomas pop culture dig. And originally it was called Roll Along Thomas, the Thomas Variety Station, because the blog was called the Thomas Friend News blog. So that was the connection. And then after the blog was retired, I just felt that I needed to give the YouTube channel a much simpler name, because it wasn't exactly catering to the variety tag quote. And that was a mistake of mine, but nowadays it is. But then I retitled it the Entertainment Hub, because there is a lot of entertainment on there, with karaoke instrumentals, the music video remixes, the specially filmed videos on location, or the reacts reviews. But I just felt it was a lot simpler of a title, and I think it's just better that way.
Yeah. From what I'm seeing now with your YouTube channel as it is today, it certainly seems like a real good entertainment hub for families and children, as well as fans too in general.
Well, it's funny you should say that, and thanks for saying that. It's funny you say that, because through some of the Trainmaster events that I've been doing, which we might go on to later, there has definitely been a few families that would see the one or two Trainmaster face masks that were not actually designed by me. They were designed by Chloe Cotton, who owns the Trainmaster brand across the country. She deals with Hampshire, but I deal with the Sussex range, and we've got others dealing with Tyne and Wear, Gloucestershire, etc. And people would sort of look at my face mask with the Trainmaster logo, then they'd look on the other side and they'd see the Roland Thomas logo, and they'd be like, "Oh, I love that channel," and then I'd be like, "Oh, that's actually me." And they're like, "What?" So I've actually met people through the events, parents and families who have actually seen my YouTube, and it's so good to see that happening in real life, because it's a real confidence boost to sort of get that feedback and to see that it's actually being reflected in reality. And a lot of that is based on human interaction, and the fact that I've been able to contribute that more to families in one or two ways or more is really satisfying to me, and it feels like I've done something.
Wow. Come to think of it, much like myself and the other Thomas Fan YouTube channels, no
Mm,
matter how the audiences are big or small, your YouTube channel certainly has its own following, if you will, and that is a good thing.
yeah, and I just feel that if you got a passion with, Thomas and putting it up on the internet, then just film whatever you want in Thomas, or design what you want. Just go and embrace yourself as being a fan, because uh, we grew up with our stuff. We want to emulate that. We want to be our own thing, which I feel is a lot more important to find your identity in the fandom. It's effectively a bit of a club in a way, but the more you grow, then the more you're able to advance on that stuff. And I know that some Thomas fans have started to use their expertise by improving, and then suddenly they get into careers like do you remember the days of Captain Punjab with the
Yeah,
Bachman engine series, and suddenly he's working on BoJack Horseman as a animator, I believe, and
he's looking
that's
for
just
the anime.
crazy, but good
Yeah,
on him.
yeah, I do recall that Captain Punch-Up now works for the animation industry. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, wow, just fantastic. And as I said, I'm a professional actor, but then I do the entertainment stuff, and I'd be lucky to have a few things here and there. If people have seen my Spotlight CV, they'll know what ones. But it's crazy. And then you look at, obviously, Michael White suddenly doing his YouTube, and then suddenly he gets into Pablo, then he does Thomas, for goodness sake, and it kind of makes you think, who's next.
Who knows?
Mm.
Anyways, so getting back to YouTube channel with the next question.
Hmm.
Do you have any favorite Thomas videos you have made? Is there any video in particular that you're most proud of?
Do you know what? I had to think about that the other month. I was really happy with how the Working Together remix went out on. My only regret about that was that I wish I extended the Blue Mountain instrumental version of that song. I'm, I just wish I extended it longer at the end, but I didn't, and I should have mixed it more. But other than that, I was fine. I'm happy that the 75 years compilation of the stories, songs, and episodes, that's been doing very well on the channel. The views have been doing really great, which has been unexpected for me. And that's a near 2 hour long video, which, believe me, was a pain in the, and I won't say another word, but that's just for everyone and all the families and the fans watching. Um, any more that I was pleased of? Ooh, is
I was thinking of one of your videos with Stephanie the Bluebell Legend, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I mean, Bluebell Railway is actually a 45-minute drive from my home in Worthing. And that was the first kind of vlog I ever did. And I just felt it was a good place to start off. But obviously, I've been doing more of that with Thomas Land, or some of the other Brighton lines, or Didcot, which, I've done one or two videos, and there'll be a few more of that. So I'm on a conscious effort to do a lot more originally filmed stuff. If there's more railway visits or whatever, then I will film them, and I will try and make some entertainment value out of it. Yeah, the Bluebell video. Yeah, I did one for Day Out of Thomas. I filmed that one. I was pleased with that one. I have to say the Roll Long Reacts ones I've been pleased about, only based on the reactions I've been getting. In terms of the fan reactions, they seem to be really happy, and they've been asking for more, which has shocked me a bit because I didn't think they were doing that well. But it's clear to me that they
Yeah.
are, and I filmed the series 24 episodes in 3 blocks of recording. So there's definitely going to be more of that. And once all that is done and the internet stuff, then I will get down to reviewing more classic episodes, new series episodes, maybe the specials, but you're just going to have to bear with me. But yeah, there's a few videos I'm proud of, but there's maybe some videos, especially the older ones, where I look back and I'm thinking, gee, I could have done better on that one. For one reason, to cater to the hardcore fans, because they want to hear that stuff, but two, it's good that I call them karaoke instrumentals, because they are, because it's kind of a good thing whether the fans want to do their own karaoke back at home and they can sing over the top of the tracks. And I've heard that families have been doing that as well, which I'm really happy with, really grateful. But the instrumentals, they're a mix of official sources. They're a mix of edits that fans have done, and they've sent them to me and be like, I think you'll like this. Is this good for the channel? Or they've been pieced together from various sources. So they're sort of a mix, and they shouldn't really be judged, to be honest with you, on their quality. Obviously, I've tried to make sure that there is some quality in there, and if it's not so good quality, then I will not bother with it. But the ones that I've put up, they're the ones that I feel are just about bearable to excellent. Excellent. That's for you, Americans.
Anyway, so moving on to the next question, and there's more onto your Rowan Thomas blog. What's motivated you into blog writing for over 4 years up to the end with Rowan Thomas?
Well, that was just down to out of pure love, really, and I just sort of had the urge to, report Thomas news as it were, because I wanted to do it, and there wasn't really any other website where you kind of had that. And I think Ryan Hagan, who I know very personally, and he's been a good guy to me. I remember he wrote up on the SIF blog one time about the rise of Thomas on the internet, and I remember him mentioning my blog, which I was grateful of, to be honest. That he said that I saw a gap in the market and I took it, and that is pretty much the simplest form. And as it went on, I was getting more up to speed with trying to look out for certain bits of things of what would happen in the next special, or when the next episode is out in the UK and US, or the DVDs. And then I started to get more original and exclusive stuff in, whether it was quotes from production members. And obviously I wanted to make sure for each and every single one of them that I would ask them, is it okay if I put this out? Because I never wanted to betray the trust. I mean, I've never in my life had a contract with a Mattel or Hit Entertainment. I've never had that, as opposed to the conspiracy theories that people may have heard of me on the internet, which is not true. But it's just that important thing of making sure you respect the privacy and confidentiality of certain things. So you've got to make sure you adhere to it, because you've got to be a responsible adult. You've got to be responsible, reliable, and really useful. Wink, wink. But then after an amount of time, when I realized that it was starting to, kind of get more popular, that it was starting to take over my life. And at that time, I was going from college to university degree studies with acting, and I just felt that I was getting quite stressed at having to, write a paper one day of a certain acting style or whatever, and then suddenly in a break I would look at my phone and it's like, oh god, there's this, and then I ran out of time, and it was just getting too much. And I felt like I just can't do it anymore. I really need to focus on my life more, which I feel a lot of people need to do for the sake of human growth, because if you become so attached to technology and the internet, then you may not be able to do what you want to do career-wise, and you'll start to become less of yourself. Sometimes the internet can be dangerous, and I just wanted to make sure that I got off my high hound and just made sure I focused on myself more. And when I ended the blog, that was not an easy decision, but I remember I announced that it was going to expire in March, then I pushed it back to April, then I pushed it back to October because I felt I wasn't finished. And then I finished it, and it wasn't until then that when people started flooding in with messages saying, oh, good luck, sorry to see it go, oh, I love that blog and everything like that, that I suddenly realized that it was popular. And I wish I knew about that before, but I didn't at the time. There wasn't much science. And then I think it was, what was it, a week later after it finished completely, or it was before it was about to finish, that the Telebrave premiere happened, and I was lucky enough to be invited there, and I met Mark Morahan, and I saw Ryan there with Chris Signory, and outside I got to see my good friends Michael Evans and Louis Sparkskin, and we hanged out afterwards. It was a fantastic day, and I remember seeing Veronica Chambers there. This was shortly after Hillary sadly died. And I
Yep.
remember I met Alf, who I think was Hillary's other half, I might be wrong. And I met the Railway Series sort of manager of them. I think his name might have been Brian. I might be wrong, but that was a great day. But going back to that, the Thomas YouTube channel in the UK, they put up, and I think you actually told me about this, Daniel, that they put up a YouTube channel of the Tale of the Brave premiere, and my blog was visually in that video at several points, and that was bittersweet when I saw that, and I just felt, oh, that was the wrong time to bow out. But I felt I made a good decision to stop. But I kind of do that now these days, sometimes putting the odd Thomas news on the Sith Facebook, which I'm an admin of, and it's sort of my way of having that as a spiritual successor. I did consider, I have to say, and I am going on a bit, my apologies, I did consider bringing it back as a Twitter sort of hub for Royal Long Thomas news. But then I decided against it several times, because if you get addicted to Twitter so much, you're not going to be able to get off from it. And I felt I should just save myself and not do that. But I kind of still do it today. And obviously YouTube I still carry on with. But you've got to focus on life more.
That's an interesting, insightful story on how you worked on your blog before having it to end it in 2014 to focus on your university degrees on acting, mostly because it's starting to getting a little stressful, which is understandable.
It was, and I remember there were days when I was completely stressed and I had to calm down, and there were certain things I had to cut, and I just felt it's better if I just take a deep breath and move away from it. But it wasn't an easy decision.
It is that you definitely need some refreshing some refreshing thing to clear off take some time out and take some fresh air for a bit before you think for yourself, what should I do next? And that's for you some little endorsement of your blog on that sizzle video of the premiere of Tale of the Brave in cinemas. I found it to be that was bittersweet for you too.
Yeah, I was absolutely gutted when I saw that, and I thought, oh no, what have I done? What have I done to my baby? But at least I got recognised in some way, and I was just happy that people from Japan had seen my blog, and the Americans, or even from Spain, Italy, and people still mention it to me every now and then today when they either tweet me or meet me in person, and it's really satisfying. But there are other things that I kind of do now that are related to Thomas, which it's sort of like I will not be away from Thomas or even talk about it.
Okay, well, that was a pretty good one. We're moving on to the Sodor Island fan site on their Facebook, to be exact. What was it like working for the Sodor Island fan site as one of their web team members for the latest Thomas news on their Facebook page?
Well, this came sort of soon after I'd retired the blog, and I remember approaching Ryan at one of the Tugs events. In fact, it was when they came down to Brighton, which is one of the very few times that I've been able to meet fans or go to a public event that is actually much near me, because as people know, I live in Worthing town, which is in Brighton City, Brighton on the mainland. Worthing is birthplace of the old of Brittlecroft, so I have a bit of legacy there in some way. But I remember talking to him at one of the Tugs events, and I remember saying, if you want, I can maybe do some more things for SI if you want me to sort of take pressure off you, because he works in healthcare, which I deeply respect him for. That's very human of him. And it was sort of because I didn't want to finish what I was doing. It was very much you know, I haven't finished what I've started, or whatever the way that phrase goes. And I've made some contributions here and there. I did a few blog articles on it. I've done a few episode reviews on there. And I'm an admin on the Civ Facebook, which I'm pleased about because it means I get to continue that stuff. And there's the odd feature that I've done, and obviously, I'm the one of the original SIFers, along with Cyromite, Eric Ryan, and obviously Ryan. So, oh yeah, and David Malinsky, who I got to meet in person twice in America. Oh yeah, and I saw him in Brighton actually when he came to the Tugs event. So I've seen him 3 times, and he's a great fella. We actually watched when I was back in America, sort of earlier this year or the year previous. We had met up after seeing some of the guys, and we actually watched Bad Boys for Life, and we were just falling about all over the place. So that was a great day out. Night, really.
Did have a massively great day out in America, getting to see people like David, Eric Ryan, A.K.A. Cyromite, and Matt Michon.
Yeah. Well, Matthew, he's a very, very dear friend of mine. Very dear.
Oh dear.
He's been very kind of like me in a way, but we're very human to each other. When he first came to this country to actually be with the fans more, I housed him in my house for 3 days because that was my offer to him. And you know what, Daniel, I'm going to give you a bit of background. He'll probably be slightly annoyed with me mentioning this, but he'll laugh at the same time. I picked him up from Brighton Station, and we hugged him. I was like, "Hey, mate, how you doing?" And but I'd actually met up with him in America a few months prior to that, and I met Adam Guzik as well, and he was very nice. And we were scaling up Temescal Canyon, which I actually regret because it was 4 miles climbing, and that was I shouldn't have done. I nearly died. And we met over the course of the last 3 days of my holiday, so that was the first time I properly met Matt. But yeah, he came to this country. I picked him up at Brighton Station, and I took him to my home, and I said, "Are you hungry?" And he said, "Yes." So I took him to Nando's in Chichester, and I didn't realize he was so into Nando's. The thing was, he was very jet lagged, but he was so hungry. He ate his meal extremely fast, and I was barely halfway through my plate. I was like, gracious goodness me. And then we were going to get him with the very next day because he was with me for 4 days, I think. And this is absolutely true. It was like 9 o'clock at night. He fell asleep in my car because he was clearly jet lagged. I thought, oh, bless. And then and I gave him my king size bed for him to sleep in, and I slept on the floor. And that was great. And then I took him to Amberley Museum, which people may have seen it in A View to a Kill, the Bond film, and I'm a massive Bond fan. But I also took him to Brighton City itself, the main town, and I took him to Bluebell Railway, which I actually did not know was the railway he was longing to visit. He said that was the number one, and I didn't know that until he told me on the bridge there at Sheffield Park, and I didn't know that. And you know what? We nearly didn't see Stepney that day, and we met up with Max Davies, who lives in Crawley, which is 45 minutes from me. And he's got black hair like me. We both like Thomas. Our birthdays are both in July. We're both West Sussex lads, so we've kind of got things in common. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. But just sort of wrap this up a bit. We nearly didn't see Stepney, and at the beginning, this was when their sort of Steamworks thing was being partly built, and Stepney was inside there, so the least we could see was him outside of the window. And I was like, oh, maybe not. Okay, and we wouldn't get let in. There wasn't anybody there who could do that. And then it was 5 minutes before we were meant to go, when I was going to take Max straight to Brighton, and Max was going to go home. And I was like, no, let's try one more time. Let's try one more time and see if somebody slips outside, and maybe we can talk to them. So we waited for about 2 minutes, and then suddenly a lady popped out, And I was like, excuse me, I wonder if you could. And then she sort of looked at Matt, and then he was sort of, giddy, like he's sort of giddy looking. And then the lady was like, yeah, come on in, come on in. And Matt was like, what is this happening? What's going on? And it was happening. And we went in, and he got to see Stepney, and he was in absolute heaven. Max put it on his vlog somewhere, and there's a bit where he goes, this is absolutely fantastic, guys. Just thank you so much. And we had a photo, and that was mission accomplished. And I was really happy that he didn't miss out on that. But
much for a wild goose chase. So much for a wild goose chases, if you ask me.
Yeah, and then eventually when I went back to America for such a positive holiday back in New York and New Jersey. New York, I'd never been there in my life, and I've met some of the guys there, including Mark Anthony. I believe I might have got that wrong, but he's a very good person and very dear friend. And I was there with Matt and Eric Saramai, who I'd never ever met in the 15 years of SIF, and then suddenly we met. And fantastic guy, and he does his teaching for a living, and I respect him for that. He was really lovely guy. I said to him he looked like Hank Azaria from The Simpsons, and he took that very well. He's a handsome guy as well. He's probably one of the most handsome in the Thomas fandom. And David Malinsky was with us, as I said, and then I hopped over to New Jersey after that, and I stayed at Matt's house. His mother was absolutely lovely to me. She was just so lovely. She was so caring. She made sure I was fed, and I got to meet Watson, which was just
the dog, Matt's dog.
I met Watson, and
wow.
We got back to his house at some point in the night of the one of 3 days that I was going to stay there, and it was snowing at that point, but I wasn't cold at all, and I was going to set for bed, and then suddenly Watson came in, and then he just went over above me. He started slapping my chest, and he was so excited to see me, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my god, because I love dogs so much. Every time I see a dog, my voice goes like this. I wish I had a fat bulldog, Daniel, but I'm not even allowed because my father won't let me. And there's a video that I did tweet where Watson, and this is absolutely true, the next morning Matt had a shower. Well, he was having a shower, and I just had one. So while he was there, I was just sitting around. I was looking at my phone, and then suddenly Watson popped in. I was like, "Hey, Watson, how are you?" And he was looking around, and then suddenly he went for one of my winter socks, and he started biting into it. I was like, "Watson, let go!" And he wouldn't let go, and I was like, "Oh God, what have I done?" It was lying on some towels. This is true. This is absolutely true. And this video is on my Twitter, by the way, so feel free to track it down, guys. Where I managed to get the upper hand on him. I took the other winter sock and I dangled it in front of him. Then his mouth went open. I took both socks. Yeah, I took both socks, hanged them in the air on my hands, and I dangled them in front of him. And he was like, and he was trying to get it. And I was like, all right, there you go. And then suddenly he started looking bored. He gave up. He looked at the towels that Matt's mum had put out for me for the shower, and then he just started putting it back on the floor. And I was like, what are you doing? So yeah, I was. Oh yeah. I got to meet Watson. I was in heaven.
So much for all dogs go to heaven, man.
Oh, and this was before Thomas's fuzzy friend came out. And can I just say, Watson is a lot cuter than the CGI dog. Love you, Jamfield.
Anyway, next question. How did you able to get to meet some well-known people like Hugh Bonneville and Mark Moorhan that were spoken of before?
The first famous Thomas person I got to meet was Ben Small. And that was, in fact, you were with me that day. Do you remember that? 2011. It was the day of the Jesus premiere. We weren't invited at the time, but that's all right. But we got offered the goodie bags, which was very nice. And then me and you and all the others, we were waiting outside, and then suddenly Ben popped out, and he actually did his Thomas voice. He went, "Bubbling boilers," and he did, "That's right." And we just geeked out. That was the time when we accepted the bad episodes for good content. And obviously it's changed, but we still respect Ben for what he did, and he was fantastic was great, and that was the first one I met. Now I don't have the ones in order exactly, but I met Mark at the premiere. I'd met him before that at when he was doing 95 the musical in Southampton, which is an hour's drive from me, and he was in it with Bonnie Langford, and I saw him in it, and I met him afterwards, and I was like, "Hey, Mark, how you doing?" And it was like, Mel, I heard you, Mel, I heard you were coming. I heard you were coming. How you doing? How you doing? And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay, Mark." And I was like, the fans really love you, because at the time the Railway Mischief DVD went out in America, which was the first time season 17 came. And he actually said to me that he was. He starts saying, "Yeah, I'm a bit cautious about the reaction. I don't even know if I even did that well. They don't know, don't they? Don't, because obviously he did Scouse and Harry Enfield, and I assured him that he was very well received, which he was, and we had a photo, so that exists somewhere. So I've met him twice, and I interact with him every now and then on Twitter. He's a great actor as well. I've seen him in so many other things as well, and
Yeah, there was one other Mark Mohan work that I did watch on DVD, and that happens to be Stepdad. He was at his best performance there, along with Sean Predicast. Sean Predicast.
Yeah, I heard this. Yeah, Mark was great, and who else have I met? Veronica Chambers I've met, and Hilary Fortman I met. We met, me and you, and the others at the time of Dead of Jesus, and we went upstairs to Hamleys, and then suddenly she was there with Alf and Veronica, and we all had a photo. And I remember we were just like, "Oh my God, it's the Audreys," and they were very nice. I remember Hilary saying to me and to all of you guys that they only kept at the time the first 4 series on DVD because they said it's my father's work, it's our father's work, and I think they liked David Users at the time. Don't know what they think of it now, but and Taylor the Brave, that Veronica was there, and Mark, and who else have I met? In terms of Thomas, Ian McHugh, fantastic guy, who I, he's a very professional guy. He's a very fun guy. He's always got very good reasons for anything about Thomas, even the negative side. He's always got a good reason, and then you're just like, oh, so that's why they did that, and you never think of it before that. And he's also hilarious. I always think he's the boss. He's always got like cigar in his hand, top cane, feet up on the table, and be like, right, we'll do this with Thomas, right, we'll do that, right, okay, we'll put the hello policeman there. I always have a mental image where he's like that, but obviously he's not. But then he's always, talking sort of. He's always been in the interviews going like, I mean, sort of McHugh. We're trying to sort of do this and sort of that.
Talking of Ian McHugh, that upon my encounter with Ian, it happens to be at the Drayton Manor launching event of Sodor Airport expansion event.
Really?
As I got off at the Tamworth train station to sort out my things as well as waiting for the taxi, I happened to see the back of Ian, who was also waiting to catch his taxi. I said,
what?
We were happening to be on the same train. But I believe we were in the different coaches of the same train. So I think Ian caught his taxi before I did. So it wasn't long before after I got into Drayton Manor and right into the barrier of the expansion with the Sodor Airport. That when I bumped into Ian and for the first time, and like you said, he seems very jolly and honest and pretty much a lovely guy. Yeah, and that we even had a photo, which next to the back controller bronze statue, with me holding a figurine of the Smurf, holding a Union Jack flag.
Yeah.
He was his bodyguards, I think.
He has some bodyguards?
Yes, I think Ian did have some bodyguards with him. I believe there's some people that working closely with him at Mattel London at the time.
I'll be surprised if it was bodyguards, but Ian can take care of himself.
Pretty much like the back controller with his bodyguards.
Yeah. Well, was the back controller there that day, I imagine?
Hmm?
Was the Fat Controller there that day of the
Oh
expansion?
yeah, the fat controller was there. Yeah, the very
He
fat
was.
controller. Yeah, I did the filming on my mobile phone, and I'll admit that I did get a little too carried away with my excitement.
I
And I
don't
think,
blame you. It's the Fat Controller, for goodness sake. I would have done the same thing. And I did do that when I went back to Drayton Manor last August with Tom Allmark. It was the first time I went there in 10 years. And I was like, Tom, the minute we get to Thomas Land, you know, we've got to find the Fat Controller and get a photo. And we did, and we had a photo, it's there somewhere. And yeah, it was like, okay. Yeah.
anyways, that was a very good one. Although we've been on the question subject for a long
I
while,
was
but
gonna say my fault. I always elaborate too much, but that's
yeah,
me as a human.
uh, as was I. Anyway. Here comes an interesting question concerning more for yourself outside of Thomas. When you are not watching Thomas, is there
Hmm.
any other TV show and film in general of media that you're a fan of?
Well, well, since a year or two ago, I've kind of been less connected to TV because I've been entertaining a lot more, which I'm lucky to do for work now. Um, but Red Dwarf is my favorite comedy ever, and I do geek out on it. Doctor Who, I'm a Whovian. Um, what
Uh,
else is there? The James Bond films. I love to watch that in my spare time. I just wish that they can just release No Time to Die. God damn it! Because it's been delayed
well,
4 times for goodness sake. I've had lots of chats with Brandon Carty about this, and he feels the same way. He's a lovely fellow, by the way.
don't you COVID on a James Bond movie that's
Oh,
delayed?
it's the fact it's Daniel Craig's send off after 5 years, and we can't let him watch it. Just give it to us. There's cinemas waiting. They're ready. They've got their COVID safeties there. Just release it, please. I just want to see that gun barrel go along, and then I'll be like, okay, let's go. Anyway, um, what else do I do in my downtime? In terms of watching stuff, there's all that stuff. Ooh, uh, I'm trying to remember. Now, I mean, I do have various Blu-rays of movies at home. Like I have the Paddington films, I've got Shaun
Me
the Sheep,
too.
I've got the Die Hard films, I've got the Fast and Furious films. I've got certain films with Idris Elba, who is one of my very favorite actors, along with Tom Hanks and David Tennant.
Uh,
And what else is there? There's plenty more movies that I struggle to name. Um, but in terms of watch stuff, yeah, I do surf on YouTube a lot. Strictly Come Dancing, I love every time it comes about because I love dancing, even as a performer. And I've been known to throw quite a few good moves, even back in the day. And these days I do that for Thomas Ravings. Uh, um, but yeah, but outside of TV and film, I do take walks every now and then, so it's always good whenever you want to go to your local town and you don't want to pay for parking, so you try and find a road that doesn't charge, which means I can walk because it helps.
wow.
Sometimes I cycle, although not recently because I've been a lot busy. And I do help with the house chores when I can. I try and help my friends as much as they can. So it's a bit of a free for all, and sometimes I touch up various Thomas models that I own at home, whether it's the push alongs or the motorized or the take alongs or the air tools, just to add more detail, put my own spin, and just make them stick out more. And I sometimes dress up, whether it's the Fat Controller for the internet videos or collecting quite a few Thomas things that I see in charity shops or marketplace, and yeah.
Ah, that's very nice. As for your vast variety of other interests outside of Thomas, those are very nice choices. This goes for Doctor Who. Shall we move on to the next question, which
Yeah,
uh,
I'm too talkative, but
yeah,
let's move on.
here we go. Since you've met some famous people in person, other than the ones of Thomas,
Hmm,
can you tell us whom? Mostly the non-Thomas people, as well.
interesting. Okay. David Tennant, Georgia Moffett, who's his missus, although I should call her Georgia Tennant now. Who else have I met? Ooh, from the top of my head, Samantha Bond I've met. Omar Jalili, because he's like one of us Iranians. I've got half Iranian heritage in me. Who else is there? There's gonna be Jimmy Carr I met at one of his gigs, and he's my favorite comedian. I had to do that. And what other ones are there? Robert Llewellyn from Red Dwarf I've met, and he was a very, very lovely person. I did mention, but I'm going to count this for Thomas and non-Thomas, but I met Michael Brandon at the stage door for Singing in the Rain when he was in it at the time. That was the same day I met Robert Llewellyn, actually. So Michael, I met at the stage door, and he actually signed my Blu-ray of David Diesel's, and we talked, and this is an interesting story, but that was 2011, and that was the day when I learned that he and Angelus were no longer doing Thomas at the time, and I was like, what? And no, this is absolutely true, and I think he was off contract by then. And 2 years later, 1.5 years later, we got Series 17. So I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, good. I wasn't quite sure what to think. And, we had a photo, that was fine. And I kept that a secret for nearly a year and a half. I probably told one or two people, but that was it. One of which knows who that was, because we had a Twitter conversation at the time. So yeah, I was one of the very first people to know about that. But then afterwards, just as I was about to leave Michael, he got a phone call from Glynis, his missus, who I think is, a great actress. And literally, his phone was going off and it said Glynis Barber, and it was like, hey Glynis, how you doing? So that was great. They're still married, for goodness sake. I mean, goodness me. And then I went to walk past that, and I was about to pass the Curzon cinema near where Singing in the Rain was performing, and I looked in there. I was like, I looked inside, and Robert Llewellyn was there, and I was like, what? And he was a great person to talk to, and talk about Red Dwarf. And I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to Red Dwarf 10. We had a photo. But in terms of other people, there's quite a bit, but I'm struggling to remember more.
Wow. As we're spoken of, now that we're talking of Michael Brandon, there were 2 times I did meet Michael Brandon, and one time of his wife, Glynis. Glynis, is that her name? Glynis?
Glynis Barber. Where did you meet Glynis?
Glynis, it was in Epsom Playhouse, where Michael Brandon did his talk show, of his career. Spoiler alert, it did not have Thomas in it, but that's no, but that's perfectly fine, because it is to do with his life story as an actor in general.
Yeah, he's done a heavy lot in his career, like heavy lots. Doctor Who, Dempsey, Makepeace, Captain America. He's done way much. But you met Glynis presumably at the stage door afterwards with Michael.
I believe that Glynis was at the 2 seats rows.
Was she?
Yeah, I think she was.
Oh, okay. Did you not speak to her?
I think only once or twice we did.
Okay.
Still, Michael, like you did tell me that he did seem very much like a lovely guy too.
And yeah. I respect him dearly, and if I'm going to be honest, he is a very underrated narrator. I know that people, even at the time or even now, get weirded out at some of the voices he did for the American Tom Stubb. But to be honest with you, I just admire the fact, from an actor's perspective, that his enthusiasm was there, and he clearly was being kind of passionate about that, and he was putting his own spin. So I find him actually underrated. And I mean, he's the longest serving American storyteller, so it's just a very weird meta fact that the 2 longest running narrators on both sides of the Atlantic are both called Michael. What the hell?
Funny you should say it. It's that I was one of the people that's was totally bearable of his narration and character voices, even at the certain limits. I mean, what I'm saying was I did enjoy the most parts of Brandon's narration too.
Yeah. As I said, he's quite underrated, but I remember people saying at the time, specifically for one of his voices, they felt that Mighty Mag sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Another one, Amazon commented, from what I recall, they're saying that his Peter Sam voice sounded like a little bit of Stitch, from Lilo and Stitch.
Do you know what, Dan? That's a better impersonation of Stitch than the one I do.
Aloha!
I can't even do it.
I tried. Anyways, let's moving on to another interesting question. Who inspired you into acting for the film and television industry, Mel?
There wasn't one specifically, but once I started to take acting a lot more further, because I studied it from GCSEs, then I did a national diploma in Chester College, and then I did a foundation degree, and then I went and did a BA. So I've done 8 years of formal studies in drama, and professionally I've done it for almost that amount of time. But it was actually a specific memory. There would be certain programs I'd be watching and I think, that actor's quite good. It wasn't until when David Tennant regenerated into Matt Smith in Doctor Who that, I started to emulate how he was regenerating and the power of it and the fact he was being emotional. And it kind of went on from there, to be honest with you. Rowan Atkinson is, an actor I find very underrated. I know people remember him from Mr. Bean from English and Blackadder, but
that man, I mean, Mr. Bean.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to act to be that character. He's got to act to be funny. Sometimes it's not that easy. He said quite a few points that he finds comedy harder to do than drama. And then now he's gone to do Inspector Maygrey, and I think he's a very underrated actor, but he's like a god to me. But certainly people like him and Tennant, and that's kind of why I wanted to do that sometimes for a living, but also sometimes as a hobby.
Yeah, did you know that Rowan also did a voice for Ratu in The Lion King? That blue parrot?
I didn't know that until much later in my life, and I had no idea about that at all.
I mean, Sasu. I got that wrong.
Yeah, Zazu. And
Sasu the parrot.
I remember having a chat at one of the student parties at the time of the BA, and it was one of the probably my most favourite party out of all of them. I didn't drink alcohol, by the way. It's not good for you kids. Just be yourself more. And I remember I had a chat with some of my fellow peers, and we were talking about, if we did our very own version of the Lion King musical, who would play who? And and the others were saying, Mel, you would be Zazu. And I was like, cool, yeah, I'll take that. But Staya, I must protest. Let's just go over there, shall we? Yeah, I took that well.
And then that's how you learned that Rowan Atkinson also, by coincidence, happened to play the character named Sasu.
Well, I sort of knew about that years before that party, but certainly when I was a child, I had no idea.
Yeah, I know that film was out in 1994.
Oh my goodness, that film was old, man. Wow.
Out in 1994.
94, that was the year after I was born.
Anyways, now that you come to think of it, you certainly did have some interesting insights of on who you inspired into film and TV industry in terms of acting, especially with that Mr. Bean guy who goes, Turtle!
Oh, just pass me to make this. Teddy! Teddy, let's read a bedtime story. Give me a baked potato.
Ostrix. Yeah, that was a part that Mr. Bean did a reading of a comic book called Asterix.
Oh, Asterix, my favorite.
My favorite.
I mean,
That was
I mean, this is the appeal of Mr. Bean, the fact that it's so universally adaptable to go into every language because it's all visual humor. It shows you the impact of it. And Rowan, as I said, is like a god to me, you know. And unfortunately, he's the reason why my face is. I mean, I know people listening to this won't be able to see this on video, but people who know me or see me will know that I've got a very expressive face, and I have been called Mr. Bean, and I've dressed up as him a few times, and people have actually said, "Oh, Mr. Bean, oh, Mr. Bean," even if it's a child. Unfortunately, I must have emulated his eyebrows and everything like that when I was watching the episodes back in the day. So unfortunately, I am stuck with it.
Oh wow. So suddenly you entered the craze of Mr. Bean himself.
Well, the only thing I'll say, Dan, is that if there's ever going to be a biopic film of Rowan Atkinson, I better damn well play him.
Yeah. If it's not Mr. Bean, I was thinking Johnny English. He was good in that as well.
Johnny English. No sense rushing things.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to some interesting questions concerning the current status of your career, which is sounds interesting in terms of entertainment. What was it like to work for Trainmaster Kids parties as well as Peppa Pig afternoon tea tours in London?
Well, I've been very lucky to go through that stuff. And this year, despite the harshness of COVID, I've been able to actually do that more and carry it on and be more advanced. Um, in terms of Trainmaster, that was something that kind of came about in January this year, and then it was going to happen a lot more sort of late March, early April. But then that was around the time COVID happened. Trainmaster, that was at that time when I'd just finished a holiday park season, and had this was straight after this was just as I had come back from my New York, New Jersey holiday, and combining both of that, my confidence was at an all-time high. I had fantastic feedback for the way I was, entertaining, being like a bit of a blue coat kind of entertainer, and getting to meet children, and they were remembering me for so many things, and they were sending me glitter, drawings or stuff like that, and they were writing to me, and I've got all that stuff in my drawer somewhere because I just felt very, very grateful. I'm slapping myself in my chest because it really was heartwarming, and children would remember me, remember my name. They wanted to just play with me and not the other ones sometimes. And I just felt I needed to do more of that, and I really didn't want to go back into retail. I really didn't want to, because there just comes a point, Daniel, when you've done all you can with a part-time job, you're very good in it, and then after a while you're very powerless in it, and you start to lose who you once were. And I did have personal complications later on with anxiety, and that sort of combined it, and I was like, I can't do retail, it's clearly not good for me anymore. And then I came back from my holiday, and then I tried to plug myself freelance wise, whether it was acting or entertaining. And Trainmaster I came across on Google, and I thought, oh, it's just something, so I'll just pop an email. And then Chloe Cotton, who mans all this, she got back to me and she was like, yeah, it would be great to maybe have you for an event, what do you do? And I was like, I can do a fat control for you. And she was like, oh, that would be great if we can do that. Yeah, let's do it. So we scheduled a date for that, for the event.
The next question, Mel. How
Yeah.
did you end up becoming the fat controller for the children while working for Trainmaster?
Well, there we go. So that was partly answered. But I went to the event, and this was in, I think it was called Marchwood or Marwood in Andover near Hampshire. And I dressed up as him. That was the first time I ever went public with it, with the exception of a Halloween week at the holiday park season, where I did dress up as the fat controller, but I gave him a sort of bruised eye and sort of ripped open tissue and makeup and everything. So it was kind of looking a bit like Better View for Gordon, fat controller ish. But going to the event, I had to stuff some padding down my front because I was like, I need to make him look fat. So I literally stuffed a hoodie that I had down my chest to try and appear fat, and I just about got away with it. But to be honest with you, keeping the consistency of, because I'm a bit of a thin person or an average weight person, I would have to scrunch my face up as hard as I can to try and get the double, triple chins going, which sometimes after a while does hurt the neck muscles a bit, but it's worth it because you feel like you've done a good job when you get great feedback from parents and so forth. But I did the event, and before it was going to happen, I remember Chloe emailed me and said, by the way, I would love to pay you, but we've run out of budget. And I was like, that's okay. I'll turn up and just do it voluntarily because I just wanted to do it. And the event went well. We kept in contact. We kept trading a lot of messages about, Thomas and things like that. And I said, the only stipulation I would have is to, do party add-ons if they want a fat controller for a children's party. And then a few months later passed, and then she one day offered to me by saying, I know this is probably not quite what you want, but how would you like it if you'd like to take over the Sussex branch of Trainmaster? I was like, oh, can you fill me in on this? And she was like, well, you would get all the motorized sets that I would hand to you, and you can bring it to community centres as long as we schedule that stuff and then do public events. I was like, yeah, go on then. And since then, I've done, I think, over 10 events now, one of which I just got off from today. So I get to do it in Worthing, Chichester, Brighton, Eastbourne, Waterlooville, Portsmouth area, and we're trying to get more venues, but we're kind of struggling because venues are not open, or they're just not replying, or they're too expensive. But we're still growing, and I've been able to restore that for them, and so that's been continuing through and through. I get to do that most weekends, and yeah, so I don't have to dress up as the lecturer for every single one of them, but I get to wear a Trainmaster shirt. I wear braces every time just to add that sort of workman-like style. And, I get to interact with the kids, but obviously we wear face masks, and I have to be responsible for making sure all the equipment is cleaned, anti-backed to hell with it, and sanitize people's hands and give them free gifts at the end, whether it's stickers or Tom's minis or, any other stuff. And I love it. And in answer to your previous question about Peppa Pig, that was one of the things that didn't quite come about in spring. That actually came about just as COVID venues were starting to reopen. And I made an application about the Peppa Pig thing, didn't think much of it, went to Brighton the next day to do some shopping. And then I got a phone call, and they wanted to invite me in, the people, and did the interview. And then I was invited back to do a trial shift because they were just starting the Peppa Pig afternoon tea tours. And it's all officially done via Entertainment One and Hasbro, and it's and when I did the trial shift, I was told to just look at the interactive videos on the screens inside the Route Master bus, double decker, closed. And after that, I was told for the second tour that day, right, over to you, Mel. And I had no script. There was no script. So everything that I've been doing on Peppa has been totally improvised, and I've now got a structure in my head where it's like, okay, I know that this works because that's been done very well, and people have responded well to it. They've been getting the reaction, and that's great. And to this day, as of now of the recording, we're in the 13th week of doing Peppa. I'm still the only children's entertainer with them, and I'm very grateful to have that amount of work, and I'm loving it. We're going to do the Halloween tours very soon, and the fact I get to be kind of Peppa's friend, but also kind of Thomas's friend as well, it's so warming. And the fact I get to do them both professionally and get paid, it kind of gives me a bit of status. And I've done about 11 years of jobs, 9 of which was retail, and now I get to do these proper as a career, and I'm loving it. And the kids have been so lovely. People have been remembering me. They've been writing very good things. And, it's one of those things in life where if you know what you're doing and you feel that you're doing a great job and you've exhausted yourself and you've really battled your energy and you've sweated lots and you've done things the way they should be and you've done it in your own way, and if people are writing good things about you, then you should continue it.
That's a way with being a children's entertainer. That's pretty much fascinating now. That reminds me, here's one little cheeky question. Had you ever watched Peppa Pig episodes beforehand or afterwards?
Oh, you're going to catch me out on this one, Daniel. The truth was that I'd only ever seen clips of Peppa before I even got the job, which was my mistake. But that's because at the time, I didn't really think much of the Peppa gig, because I had no idea who the Bridget's Bakery Company was, and they're a famous bakery in London who do afternoon tea tours, and Peppa was their first foray into doing it for children. And it was all officially done. That was all meant to be launched in March, but then COVID happened. How can I put it? What was the question? I've forgotten that. Oh, yeah. So in terms of watching Peppa Pig, I did make sure I revised. I made sure I looked at some clips to understand it, and then I looked at the interactive videos, which are, I should say, exclusive to the tour. So if you want to find out, you go on b-bakery.com and you check out the bookings. And they run for Thursdays to Sundays. But in terms of the research, I just was thinking, so long as I get the basic stuff in my head and understand the world of it, then I think I may know what to do with it and put my personality out there for the children. And even early on, I was getting a lot of great responses. And nowadays, as I said, I've got a structure in my head, which I know what to use because I know it's worked. And yeah, I had to revise a bit because I remember the days, and you might remember this too, Daniel, when it was around the time when Thomas season 14 and 15 went out, that Peppa was Thomas's rival. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I did recall that. While I was doing some research for my fan documentary, that apparently Peppa Pig took over as the best licensed children's movie in 2011. And I was like, what?
And now I'm working with the Bleeding Pig. No, that's great. But yeah, all the material that's in the tour is exclusive. They got all the original voice actors to record the stuff. I even met one of them, one of the voice cast, Sarah Gain, who voices Miss Daisy, among one or two other characters, and she actually went on one of the Peppa tours with her nephews, and she was such a lovely lady. I made sure she was included in my jokes, but I didn't want to mention on the microphone that she was, Miss Daisy. But I remember she was telling to me that she had only recorded it like a month prior. And yeah, I got to have a photo with her, and it was great. I was really happy, and I got to meet the people at Hasbro very early on, and I had good chats with them about that. I even spoke to them about Thomas, for goodness sake, and they were like, I didn't know Thomas was Peppa's rival back in the day. And I was like, well, there you go, you learned something new, just like I had to learn more about Peppa. And in terms of the experience, for those that don't know, who are thinking, how can this run during COVID? The thing is, it is COVID friendly. There is protective screens behind each table. On the lower floor, there's 4 tables. On the upper floor, there's, I think, 8 tables, which is a lot, on a longer stretch. And we sanitize their hands before and after the journeys. We make sure we tell them to put their face masks on when they board the bus and come off the bus. But once they're in their seats, they can tug them down because they need to eat. And there's Peppa ice biscuits that the chefs give them and the waitresses, and they get to eat macaroons with cream. They get to eat strawberry tarts, little margarita pizzas, carrots and hummus. They get to eat dark chocolate balls with hundreds and thousands. I mean, it all sounds tasty, and they get to take it home as well. And they get Peppa activity books officially given to them, and they get to take, Peppa Pig cups you know, where you can put your hot chocolate or your coffees in to take home. And the best thing of all is the grown-ups get their own as well, so they can show it off to their, you know, friends in the pubs or bars and whatever. And that always goes down very well with them in the tours. And the tours are 90 minutes long each. Traffic is permitting because, you know, it is central London. But I'm basically entertaining, but I'm also making sure I point to them at the various sites out there of the tour. You know, oh, this is Westminster Abbey, you know, right, look over there. Can you see that big blue boat, kids? Oh, look, I see a red thing. Right, count how many red things you can, kids. That's Peppa's favourite colour, you know, stuff like that. Get them involved. And it really does get them involved. And there's, you know, the exclusive material, like I said, that gets played, and historic information that gets mentioned, the original narrator's back. But I got told, and I didn't know this, but I knew that Peppa herself, the character, got recast because the other actress had grown up and her voice had broken, so they couldn't do that. So they got their new one. And then I got told by one of my bosses that that was the first Peppa material that she had recorded to go public. So that was interesting. I don't know the name, but unfortunately, but yeah, that was a bit of a good fact. And
that reminded me of a similar process with Charlie Brown's voice actors and children.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, Thomas Ben Small and then changing into John Hasler and stuff like that. And you know, but the Peppa tours, I'm very grateful to be a part of as the early entertainer for Thursdays to Sundays, and we do 2 tours a day, and it gets us noticed. We get to go through central London, see the sights of HMS Belfast, Tower Bridge, London Bridge, Shakespeare's Globe, St Paul's Cathedral, St Bride's Church, Piccadilly Circus, Buckingham Palace, Westminster Abbey, House of Parliament. Lots of sites, and we get to do the sing-alongs, whether it's the Bing Bong song or the Wheels on the Bus. Yes, Daniel, even I have to sing because I sound like a drowned buffalo when I sing, or I sound like Pierce Brosnan in Mamma Mia. I'm a horrible singer. I even include that in my jokes, which goes well. But yeah, but I absolutely love it. I'm very grateful that I get to do something that I love doing, and I do help the people out when I can in terms of the cleaning, just because I'd rather help people out in humanity.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful that I get to do that and Trainmaster. And I do have a third job in entertainment with Non-Stop Kids, who are like an award-winning children's party company, and I'm the only one in the Brighton area, but they do it nationwide. However, we're currently on hold for now after I've just done 6 parties because the government cannot make their minds up about where you should let children have parties, which to me sucks because it means children are not allowed their friends around for a party. I think that sucks.
Yeah, but sadly, that's the way things are with COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah, but even, you know, to enlighten a bit, I've had lots of parents speak to me being very confused and befuddled by the constant changing of the rules and the fact that a lot of it, if not all of it, doesn't make much sense whatsoever, because you can have 30 people in a venue that's COVID friendly, but you can only have 6 at home, even when it is healthy. And there's a lot of that in the fact that children have had to have their parties cancelled, or you've got to pay extra for stuff like that. And the fact that the track and trace has not worked, and it proves that there's a complete disarray in the handling, and the fact that you get people who say they're experienced in so and so, but those higher up are not actually experienced. They are not qualified at all to speak on behalf of families, because, you know, put it this way, if you're at a workplace and if you're doing a terrible job, eventually you'll get let go. Now, I wish it was like this for the governmental kind of things, but unfortunately, it's that thing this year where, in the grip of health and safety, we're having to make up our own rules, because a lot of the ones officially do not make sense, and people are being bandied about every now and then. They don't know where to go from here, and we're just very much having to protect ourselves and making sure we get sense and sensibility intact, while making sure we don't get devalued as society.
All right. That's some very fascinating insights into the expansion of your career now as a children's entertainer, in which a simple comment in which I could simply say, "Whoa, man, whoa,
And I get paid, which really helps.
a lot." That was one heck of a lot. Anyway, so we've got 4 more questions.
Okay.
Right, the first one, shall we hear, is what can you see yourself in 10 years?
Ooh, I'm gonna be honest, Daniel. That's one of those questions that I struggle to answer, just because that I live life in the present. Because sometimes when you wish too long or too far, thinking, "Oh, I wish I could have this. Oh, it'd be great if you can have that." Sometimes it's like a New Year's resolution. You only disappoint yourself if you don't go through with it, or you don't get to that. And I just take things as they go. But in terms of a forward thinking plan, it's very much just seeing how I go from here. At the moment, I'm enjoying my life and working life, and the fact that I'm getting, you know, such good buzz from people, but also getting buzzed myself whenever I'm doing those jobs, because I feel lucky. And I wouldn't say no to doing things like, in the Disneyland resorts. I wouldn't be against that. That would be a consideration. It's just you have to pass those auditions, and obviously COVID will still be about in the next 1 or 2 years, definitely. We're a while away from this, so it's very hard to say. And do you know what? That's a question that my father has asked me several times this year, and I've had to tell him the same thing to you. It's the fact that we can't quite tell what will happen in the next few years, because we could all be out of work in the next few years. It's a bit scary, but for some of us, we're lucky to carry on, and we're lucky to take things a lot further. And the fact that we've been given chances. So who knows? But just very much continuing what I love doing, because I'm very comfortable. I get a good buzz out of it, and whether it means doing more professional voice acting, I mean, professional voice acting, I would love to do a lot more. I would love to get involved in children's voiceovers for TV.
Would
Definitely, probably, and maybe the odd more professional acting gigs. But we've been hit hard in this industry, for goodness sake, and the fact that we've had a lack of faith from the powers that be to let us carry on, despite the fact you can be crammed in an airplane, for goodness sake. And but those, I think, would be the criteria that I'd go for. So more of the same, but advancing as well.
That's a very fair answer, albeit a little lengthy, but still, it's a good.
Yeah. I'm always like that, Daniel. You know me.
Yeah.
My apologies to any people listening to this, but this is me.
Yeah, it's
And
okay.
I'm proud of it.
In case of that, maybe some parts of the audio will be edited out in the editing process.
Oh God.
Not all of it, but maybe a few of them, just for consistency.
Do what you got to do. Just put it in the deleted scenes on DVD or somewhere. I don't know. Just make sure you look in the deleted scenes. And you think, oh, there's deleted scenes, but then you look inside and there's nothing there.
Or maybe uploading it a whole thing in full on Google Drive or something.
You're cool.
Yeah. Anyways, next question. In terms of Thomas fan channels on YouTube that are also your mutual friends, who would you recommend to our audience?
Do you mean in terms of the older fans or families?
Anyone, fans and families.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Definitely Matt Michaud's Enterprising Engines. Like, a lot of people look up to that, and that's kind of why I got involved with the voices for his series. Oh, which is one thing I didn't mention, actually, because I voice for an ASNet, and hopefully I'll do more characters, and I'm grateful that Matt uses me. But he films them professionally well. They're well shot. The stories are very original. They are all not exactly adaptations. They have the same character ethos and mythos of the original Thomas characters, but they're his own style. And the fact that, as far as I'm aware, from what my brain can recollect, there's no profanities, there's no violence. They're very kind of PG kind of thing, which I think is acceptable. So I would recommend that to universal kind of audiences, and even the older fans, because it caters towards both really, and they got a lot of craftsmanship in it. Other channels,
You played Reyes and his series. I played
I do.
Stafford series as well.
You do
I
play
played.
Stafford, yeah, you do a great job.
Aye, thank you, Mike. I as long as I need to recharge my batteries first, I try to be a decent and doing a decent impression of Keith Wickham. But I digress. Keith does a much better voice acting thing than much as I do. So, kudos to you, Keith. You do a good job there, man.
My name is Stafford. I run on batteries, not a boiler.
My name is. I have a battery, not a boiler.
But yeah, other channels. Here's the thing. I mean, I'm not too attached with Thomas fan content. I think it's because I'm a lot attached with the official stuff, just because it's like you grew up with that show and you are kind of too attached to that. No matter what you think about it, whether there's good episodes or bad episodes, believe me, there's episodes in Big World that I find not good, but I still watch the show as a fan, and the fact that I'm still entertained by watching a show about trains, because we like that. Other channels, I would recommend Aaron Tram Engine Studios, definitely, and he's a great friend, and I've spoke to him recently on Skype a few times, because he does his own way of filming, but the fact he's very good with the animation kind of thing, with the faces, it makes him a lot more unique. And I heard recently that he's even had comments from parents saying, my child watched you and they quote your stuff, which is like, wow, well done, mate. And I'm trying to think what other Thomas fan accounts there might be. Thomas the Barkman Engine, I definitely remember, but that's more for adults. The thing is, there's lots of Thomas fan content that is very aimed at adults, when really there should be more for children, because that's the way it should be, because Thomas is for children. It was always like that even from the start, because there wasn't really ever a particular age demographic that Brit or Reverend Audrey put for. It's the fact it was accepted for a universal kind of audience, and these days we kind of know it's for 2 to 6 year olds, kind of, or 2 to 4 year olds. But I would love to see more Thomas fan content that's more for families, that isn't so much about constantly, the dreaded word of remaking a episode, because you make it look inferior. Like, I'm kind of against classic series remakes, to be honest with you, or even remakes of things like Adventure Begins, because it's like you're branding it a remake and you're making something that's very inferior to the high quality product. Maybe you can class it as a, and this is constructive, by the way, just call it a reinterpretation or your own version. But to use the word remake, I think should be done a lot less, and even practically, I think there needs to be a lot more, more focus on the fact that this is about Thomas, children, trains, and whatever. There is another channel I didn't mention, actually, Toy Trains for You. The gentleman that does that, he, as you know, films lots of the Thomas motorized engines, and he makes original stories or shorts, and he gets the Tom Moss character. So, stuff like that. But I know a lot of friends, and on the airwaves, whether it's Mark Antony or Tyne Sen South, and Guzik, or even the TCC stuff, which pretty much is for children. And there's an awful lot more, but it seems to be a lot for adults, which I think needs to be readdressed.
Right. Those are good choices of other bands that you recommend, i.e. Machard and Aaron, A.K.A.
Yeah, everybody is all talented in their own right, so long as they find their own identity with how they are in the Thomas fandom and in terms of the video making stuff. So long as they make things their own, then, and your audience and you know how to advertise that, then absolutely go for it. Just make sure you know where you are and where you come from.
Quite true, Mel. Quite true. Anyway, the last two questions. Here's an interesting one for one of the last two. What have you learned from over a decade as one of the Federer and Thomas fans on the internet?
That as the years progressive, as they go, they get more toxic as they are, especially the past 3 years. And the fact that, being a member of a fandom of any kind, it does come with personal issues every now and then, which sometimes shouldn't be disclosed, but sometimes shouldn't be begrudged in the form of toxicity and negativity and bullying and racism and anti-socialism and all that kind of stuff. It's just completely wrong, and I really feel that a lot of people need to remember who they are as people, because it's like you're wearing a mask. One half of your mask is your true self, but then the other side is yourself on the airwaves, as it were, on the internet, and it makes you less of who you are. And I do feel that for a lot of people on the internet, they lose that. It's always best that they retain themselves, otherwise you get so carried away that you do a lot of damage, and you do damage, but you don't think to yourself. You constantly defend yourself, and you start to belittle others, but then years later they admit to themselves, actually, I did a lot of wrong. I was a total bleep. And in terms of other stuff, as the years have gone for Tom's fans, that it's always good to go back to square one when you relive who you are, how you grew up with Thomas back in the day, and if you like it still, then go for it, but then you can reminisce the old memories. You don't have to like the official Thomas now. That's up to you, because if you're constantly wanting to watch it as a fan, then go for it. But just remember that Thomas has never really been just an adult show. People need to remember that. People need to remember it is meant to be a universal kind of thing, but also it's catered towards young children. And this isn't a whole thing of, oh, Mel, you work with Mattel and all that. No. I'm just a fan who enjoys life, and I get on with professional stuff. In no way have I got contracts, and I don't know where those fake news come from, if I can say that.
Are we good with the last one?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers, friends, and fans after all these years?
That to anyone that's ever known me personally or seen me in person, and if you've been nice to me and you're grateful to have me as your friend, as well as I'm grateful to be your friend, then thank you dearly, because we need more of you guys in real life, because it makes one of us all. Embrace the weirdness, embrace being a fan, just embrace being, so fantastically fun, because I do not see a problem with adults having a little kid inside them, because you need that energy. You need that sort of whimsicalness in you, because it means you're able to not only adapt for yourself, but adapt for others. People can look up to you. You become good people. You become good Samaritans. You learn from the morals of Thomas. Always learn from the morals of Thomas, because if you don't, it means you are constantly being racist on the internet, sexist, misogynistic, uncaring, bullyified, and you can't call yourself a true Thomas fan if you've not learned from much of those morals at all, because that show is meant to educate us. It's not meant to negate us. And just to anyone who's really been writing lovely comments to me or interacted with me on there, just thank you so much, because there's heartwarming stuff that comes my way. I admire people who, are very true within themselves, who show their face. And let me just elaborate on that by saying, when I say show themselves, I don't mean showing your face. I mean showing your true self. That's what I mean. And never listen to rumors. You shouldn't listen to rumors, Thomas. If you want the facts, if you want the most hard-earned evidence, you go to that person who's being subjected to that. You do not listen to others. You've got to remember who your people are. You remember where you are. You remember your place. And also you've got to care for others. That's the most important thing. And just remember to just love each other. Remember to embrace all the idealities of life. And when you meet each other at events, it's like your family. And, you know, just, you know, just be the fan, but just don't forget who you are. And just thank you to anybody who loves watching what I do, who loves following what I do, who loves to chat to me or who wants to chat to me. And, you know, if they want to maybe meet up with me, then just throw a line and we'll do something. Because when you meet people in person or fans, that is the best thing, because you know each other a hell of a lot more. You don't know each other better when you're on the airwaves, because it's just text. When you look at text in any way or form, you see something that somebody writes, and then you think, oh, that person is writing it as if they're upset or if they're being cross at me. You always get the best version of that when you're with that person in person. And just don't lose any of that. Don't lose yourself, but just remember your people. And I love my people. I love you, Thomas fans. And just thank you.
And that's how we all came to know our good friend Mel Shiri, aka Roll Along Thomas, the
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Good old Ringo Starr impression thing. And with that said, thank you for joining us with the the exclusive SmurfyDan interview, Mel. And I do hope that you're doing very well. In spite of the current situations that we're speaking of with COVID-19 and whatnot, with the best aspects of your life as an not just as a professional actor, but as a children's entertainer outside of YouTuber and blogger too.
Thank you. And you too, Daniel. Keep yourself bright. Take very good care. Make sure that you don't, you know, set off on the wrong foot. But, you know, I don't think you will ever do that, because you are one in a few that's unique. So you're definitely one of the few.
I thank you for that, Mel. Shall we bid our farewells? Mind if I let you go first with your saying goodbye before I do it with my typical farewell message, like this is SmurfyDan signing off, etc., etc.
And this is Mel Shiri, Roll Along Thomas. Choo choo, mother.
And this is SmurfyDan signing off, giving a cheerful toot toot farewell and goodbye.